Thanks so much for inviting me. I am super excited about this talk because there are like really interesting things happening in the hummingbird research, and I would like to share it with you. So I will try to. I don't know if you have a mic that I have to wear or no. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's start with this idea of like, what are the mechanisms behind hummingbird aggression? Okay, so I would like to start with a video, and this is I'm gonna see if you recognize the species. It's not a North American species, so let's see if you can tell me what is the species, and also like pay attention to how much aggression is in this video. Okay, so I think that you got the idea. What is this species? Where is this? South America. I'm Chilean. So, okay, within Chilean species, anybody? No? It's the green-backed firecrow, Cephanoides stephanioides. And the thing is that, you know, common to many species of hummingbirds, what we see is this, right? We see that they chase each other, that they hate each other, right? And then the question is like, what is driving this aggression? But also, let's take kind of like a look on some of this idea of like that the success in terms of getting a territory, in terms of displacing the competitors, is not equal among hummingbirds. So some males are going to be more successful than other ones. So then the question is, why we have some differences in aggression, and why some hummingbirds are more aggressive and successful than other ones. So if we look at different traits, we should look at the morphology of the bill. We should look at morphology of the wing. I didn't bring a pointer, so I'm gonna maybe be pointing with my pointer. We should look at body condition, and all of that influencing aggressive behavior. We know that there is some role of hormones. We know that there is a role of testosterone, but we actually don't know exactly how integrated is this whole set of traits. Meaning that if a hummingbird has, let's say, a certain type of bill morphology, does it have the certain type of wing morphology that makes him a better competitor or not? And other thing that we need to consider is that hummingbirds take a lot of are influenced by the environment in a very important way. So actually, variables like ambient temperature and the quality of food are going to be essential to understand aggression in hummingbirds. So before we get into the morphology and hormones or in behavior, let's take a look on how ambient temperature and food quality affect territoriality and aggression in hummingbirds. So this is a field experiment. And then basically the idea here is that we have feeders in the middle of the winter. So temperature went low. This is the ambient foothills. This is the hummingbird that I just showed. And I was measuring ambient temperature and aggression levels. If anybody is interested, I can explain how I measure aggression levels, but for now, please trust me that I summarize that. And what is very interesting is that the aggression follows this quadratic distribution, meaning that when it's too cold, they are not aggressive. And then temperature starts increasing, and then they start being more aggressive. So that is very interesting. And then it gets too hot, and then the aggression starts disappearing. So then why, right? What is interesting is that if we calculate how much energy a hummingbird is spending in just getting warm when it's cold is huge. It's 65% of their energy is just allocated in being warm. And then that starts basically decreasing. And to the point that there is room basically for aggression. There is energy for aggression. And then eventually it gets warm again, too warm, and then it's easier to get energy. So basically, why are you going to risk to engage in aggression if food is available, energy is available? So something that I was interested also was what happens with food quality? Because let's say that you have something that is really good, right? And it's worth you risking versus something that is not that great. So basically, I offer different food qualities. And I offer excellent food quality, 30% sugar versus 15% sugar, like me, right? And they start defending those feeders, the high quality feeders, when it's really cold, because the reward is going to be high. So do you follow me, right? And instead, when you offer them food that is not that great, they start defending, but when it's much warmer, because it's like, why are you going to choose to be aggressive? That is risky, when actually the reward is not that much. So what I want to say here is that even when we are going to focus now in traits that are like inside the hummingbird, right? So morphology, hormones, behavior. I think that we cannot forget the fact that the environmental variables, and especially temperature and food quality, play an important role in shaping the aggression levels. So let's take a look on different variables related with aggression. So let's start by wing morphology. Okay, so wing morphology is important because maneuverability is different depending on the shapes of the wings, right? So what happens if we take a look on that? In a species where males are territorial and females are not, we find very different wing shapes in the same species, just males versus females. In males, we find relatively shorter wings, and that allows them to accelerate, right? Versus females that are flying among territories, and they have longer wings that allow them to save energy. Even if we do something that is called a phenotypic selection analysis to estimate how much natural selection is acting, we discovered that it is. And actually, it's favoring in females having wings that are longer and also bills that are longer. Anybody could guess why females should have a longer beak, a longer bill? To getting more flowers, right? So if they are chased away, at least they should be able to eat from as many resources as possible. And natural selection is acting here, favoring those two traits. Let's take a look on the bill morphology now. So hummingbirds actually have a really, really different bill morphology than other birds. They have a dagger in their bills. So this is how it looks. It looks really scary, right? Like I think that these birds are tiny, but they are equipped to kill the competitors. So this was observed by researchers in the past, but it wasn't until Marcelo Araya and Alejandro Rico Guevara figured out that this is a trait that is related with competition among males, and not as people used to think that this was related with nectar robbing, but no, it's actually related with the competition male to male. So for this experiment, they worked with long-billed hermits. So this is in Costa Rica. And let's look first at how juveniles versus adults look. So if you look at this panel, you see that females never develop this elongation that you can see in males. So females have the mandible and the lower and the upper mandible are the same length. In males, the upper mandible is highly elongated. But in males, it develops, so juveniles don't have it, adults develop it later, but not all the males develop that. So females never develop, and then we have the difference between territorial or losers. And losers never develop this. So that is really interesting, right? So we have a territorial male that will develop this knife to kill the other ones. That's really interesting. But then the story doesn't stop here. And we have to ask about cognitive abilities. So then I bet that some of you are thinking like, wait, why are you overlapping cognitive abilities with energy balance and foraging efficiency? How is that related with fitness, meaning success in feeding, so getting like better and surviving more, or reproducing more? How is that related? Well, because if we take a look on the hummingbird ecology, we are going to discover that it makes a lot of sense that they remember not just generic things. They need to remember what, where, and when. Because flowers vary in their nectar concentration. So there are flowers that are going to provide much better nectar than other ones, right? Then we see that flowers exist in patches. So there is a patch that has fresh flowers and then eventually will die. And then there will be another patch of flowers. So it makes a lot of sense to remember where are those flowers. And also when, because flowers will replenish the nectar several times a day. Depending on the species, it's about 2 hours, more or less. So it makes a lot of sense to remember to go back to a flower without repeating one that you just ate. So, but to go back to the one that is full of nectar, right? So if we put together the what and where, so remember nectar concentration and patches of resources, what and where, that means spatial memory. But if we also add the time, then we talk something that is, we have something that is called episodic-like memory. And it's called episodic-like memory because we cannot talk to the hummingbirds. In humans, we have episodic memory. That means that if I ask you, and you can do the exercise for a second, I will ask you about your breakfast. It comes as a one memory in that you can remember what you ate, where were you, and more or less what time it was immediately. You don't have to, retrieve those parts separately. In that, remember all of that together means energy, means that a hummingbird is getting a lot of energy at once. how do you measure memory in a wild hummingbird? So this is an experiment where basically we have to observe first, let's say, 3 feeders with water and one with nectar. So in this case, we have these 3 have water and this one has nectar. In other experiments, in other systems, we offered 1 with nectar and 2 with water, but it's the same idea. So the first time that the hummingbird visits this arrangement of feeders has no idea what is going on, right? When it comes back, it should go back to the feeder that offers nectar, right? If it remembers. So that tells me that the number of feeders that is going to visit in the first visit in the search phase versus the number of visits when it comes back should be different, right? In the second time, it should go directly to one feeder, the one feeder that has nectar. So that is exactly what we found. So these are hummingbirds, subjects. So hummingbird 1, hummingbird 2, etc. In black, we have visits to the feeders that had, when they didn't know what was in the arrangement. So the first time that they approached this arrangement of feeders. And then in white, what happens when they came back. And for example, look at number 3 or number 9 or number 10. When they were first inspecting, they were visiting several feeders until they found the one that was rewarding. And when they came back, no mistakes at all. No mistakes. So those little lines reflect the standard error. So it will tell me that, how much variation is in the response. But look at number 13. Number 13, not the sharpest, right? Happens always. We have about 20%. They're not bad. Okay? So, but in this experiment, we're just asking, do you remember what and where? But we are not really asking when. So for doing that, the protocol changes. And now we have 2 nectar qualities and 2 replenishing times. So what we have here is that how I train the hummingbirds. These are free hummingbirds. They can visit me or not. But they were interested because I was offering food, of course, and I was dressed in red. So I was another flower providing nectar. And so I replaced the feeder that they have by this green on A and on panel A. And basically the only thing that I was saying here is, hey guy, look, now there are 2 nectar qualities in your territory. A low quality and a good quality. Just that. Once they started understanding that, I replaced that by this other arrangement that had the low quality feeder was giving nectar every 5 minutes. And then the high quality nectar was giving nectar every 10 minutes. And then we started the experiment. So we had an arrangement where feeder number 2 and number 9 were giving low quality nectar every 5 minutes. And then feeder number 3 here was giving nectar every 10 minutes. And it was high quality nectar. So what do you think it happened? What would you do if you were hummingbird? So I, as a researcher and as the person that was running the experiments, I expected them to go back exclusively to number 3 every 10 minutes, right? No, there is variability. So we cannot, keep staying on this topic that much, but there is variability. Most of them like the number 3, and they came back every 10 minutes to the number 3, but other ones made a mix. So they visited like 2 times, for example, the low quality feeders at 5 minutes. And then once they visited the high quality feeder, they did it at 10 minutes. And a couple, like 20% of the guys were like, didn't remember that. So then if we measure different things, what is the key to get a territory? And I would like to show you, let's see. I would like to show you a video with this experiment. So, okay, so then the question is like, what is more important, right? So this is an experiment with long-billed hermit. And this is the spatial memory experiment adapted to these guys. Search phase, they have no idea what is going on there. Trying everything. What is there? Okay. Came back. Now directly to the rewarding feeder, of course. We know that it's the same hummingbird because you can see that we add a little tiny color foam in the back. It could be that they sing differently, and it could be that a territorial actually sings better. And better means maybe more complex songs or more often. And for doing that, Marcelo, my collaborator, Marcelo Araya, he analyzed the singing. Then what about like being in a better condition and having kind of like more power to lift something as a proxy of attacking? So in this experiment, they need to lift a couple weights 3 times, and then, well, they are released. And then this is the stabbing. So I wanted you to pay attention here. These are males fighting for this branch that we don't know what is special about that branch. And they're fighting over, like a lot, right? But it's a very ritualized fight until we get to be more violent. And let's see. I would like you to pay attention to what happens when we see this fast. Did you see what happened there? I would like to maybe repeat this. Pay attention to where the attacker points to, directly to the neck. And now imagine what happens if you have that huge, if you have that tip of the bill, right? It's like absolutely deadly.
Thank goodness. Okay.
Okay.
Good. We're on the right slide.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, don't get distracted. So, so then the question was like, okay, out of everything that we saw and measured, what is more important to acquire a territory? And it was surprising, but the spatial memory is actually as important as the body size in the tip of the bill, but the load lifting wasn't that important. So that is actually interesting, right? So then we go back to the question of like, well, what happens with other variables? Now let's take a look on physiology. And let's take a look on hormones, testosterone. So in testosterone, we have in androgens. we have two main androgens that can be related with aggression. Dihydroepiandrosterone, DHEA, and testosterone. The point is that testosterone has downsides because an excess of testosterone has an immunosuppression effect and immunosuppressive effect, and also, animals can get injured, but there is a risk of cancer. So in general, an animal that is aggressive during the whole year wouldn't like to have testosterone up the whole year. Also because they don't need to be reproductive the whole year, especially if the females are not reproductive the whole year and receptive, right? So then what happens is that this other hormone, that is DHEA, is giving them the behavioral effects without the reproductive effects. And it was the case in many animals that displayed aggression during the whole year, but reproduction just at some part of the year. So then I was very interested in that. And I wanted to measure what was driving the aggression in the hummingbirds. So first thing that we needed to do was to develop a non-invasive technique to measure hormones, because I can collect a little bit of blood, but it's not ideal. So then what we do, we get urine. Well, it's cloacal fluid. So this is how it looks. You can see that we are not even touching that much the cloaca. The hummingbirds is scared because we have them in the hand, right? And it's going to pee anyway. So we have this capillary and we just collect the urine. And if it's not scared, we scare it. And we blow. We blow and then the hummingbird is going to pee. And that is great, because with that we can measure hormones in a non-invasive way. And what is we discovered? That DHEA is actually driving the aggression during the non-reproductive season. And this is in Anna's hummingbird. And you can see how territorial guys have much higher DHEA than the non-territorial ones. We also see that the aggression index is related with DHEA. So more hormone, more aggression. In body condition, too. More hormone, more in better condition they are, which means that they are gaining resources over this with this aggression. What happens in the reproductive season? Yes, in the reproductive season, we have testosterone. And testosterone is actually related with body condition. What happens now if we compare different species in here, actually in babies? Black chicks, levels of testosterone to the roof. And then Annas and Rufus. In black, we have the males. And in white, the females. So what is going on now? The question is now, what is the role of testosterone in putting all of these traits together, in integrating all of these traits? So we know that we have aggressive behavior. We know that they try to stab each other, but not all of them do it in the same way. We know that they have bill daggers, and we know that that actually is not the same in every male. We know that flight performance is important, and we know that levels of testosterone are also different. So then the question is, well, we know in other birds that testosterone early on in development has effects remodeling the morphology, and that has consequences when the birds are adults. So then the question here would be, what happens with the testosterone levels when they are juveniles? Is that what drives the development of this bill dagger or not? And then does that set up also the wing for morphology? So if you have high testosterone and you are a juvenile, maybe when then you're an adult, you're going to have a very big bill dagger and wings that allow you to accelerate and try to go each other, you know? So we are now trying to run this study, and I am really happy to tell you that this is a new project at the Museum of Wildlife and Fish Biology. One person that is a collaborator, it's here. So we are working also in collaboration with Marcelo Araya and Alejandro Rico, and we're capturing the hummingbirds, taking measures, trying to determine the age and mark them with some little color foam. Then we take a bunch of pictures to try to see what is the development of this bill in adults and juveniles. And then we're going to run hormone assays. We, of course, collect cloacal fluid. So what is this relevant? Because somebody could be like thinking like, well, this is interesting, but so what, right? And actually, there is a so what, because we know that testosterone is a mechanism driving is remodeling basically a lot of morphological traits, and it will have effects on bill development, in muscle, in behavior, and in energy expenditure, in metabolism, and immune function. So then there are potential costs of testosterone for sure. But then there are two ideas on how these traits evolve. And these are competing ideas. And the first one is called evolutionary constraint hypothesis. And this it says that during evolution, it was testosterone, the target of selection. So you have high testosterone and then you have high everything. It's coupled. And there is nothing else that could vary if it's not testosterone varying first. But on the contrary, in the evolutionary potential hypothesis, people think that what could be the target of selection is the link between testosterone and these traits. So it could be that you have changing in testosterone and you could develop a big dagger, but maybe not the wings, but maybe you are not so aggressive, or the different combinations of that. So evolutionarily, it's really interesting. What is that we expect here? We expect that the adult bill dagger is going to be related with the testosterone level in juvenile. So I catch a juvenile bird, we measure testosterone, we catch the bird later when it's an adult, and we expect that if it was exposed to high testosterone, then it will develop a bigger bill, a bigger dagger, better wing morphology, right? We also expect that in the adult phase, testosterone levels are related with aggression. We kind of know that, right? More testosterone, more aggression. But we also expect to see not that much relation between the testosterone levels as an adult and the bigger, the bill dagger, because that was set up when they were juveniles. So actually, the adult testosterone is more related with this aggression level right now, but the morphology should be related with testosterone levels when they were juvenile in the past. So yeah, so that is kind of like the idea, and we are now collecting pictures. And there is a bigger question: is this true across different species in a different environments? So that's why we are working also in Costa Rica in parallel, and we are gonna test different species in North America and different species in Costa Rica to see if this is true or not. So take-home message is that aggression levels can respond to this very complex interaction between morphology, behavior, and environmental variables. And most important, I think that we need to consider that these relationships are dynamic through the life of the animal. And that means that it can change over seasons or during the life of the individual. Okay, so Do you have any?
Is the growth hormone, how do you compare or contrast growth hormone versus testosterone?
Growth hormone versus testosterone? That's a good point. We are not measuring growth hormone right now, but we could if we had enough cloacal fluid. So that it could be a limiting factor, but more than growth hormones, I would be more worried about thyroid hormones. So my overarching goal, and I wasn't showing that here, but is to determine what is more remodeling. Is glucocorticoid, thyroid, or androgen hormones. So growth hormone, of course, could be a possibility, but I would like more to test thyroid.
There's been a request that you repeat the question.
I'm so sorry. Yes. So the question was, I'm so sorry, people on some. The question was, what do you think is the effect of growth hormone? Which is an excellent question. I was explaining that I would prefer to work with thyroid, which I think that it has a more important remodeling effect, but growth hormone for sure. Yes. Excellent question. Most likely, as happens in many species where there are two different phenotypes, one phenotype that is quotes the loser, another one the winner. The question is how in evolution those losers keep existing, right? And in many species, it happens that they sneak. So it could be that they are less aggressive to the females, for example, and that could be how they approach them. In these hummingbirds, in the Chilean hummingbirds, that actually can be key to understand how they get together, because males are so aggressive that they beat females like a lot. Yes.
Is it true that in the Spanish Inquisition, therefore Queen Isabella had more testosterone when she conquered this country?
I have no idea. Yeah.
In what?
Sorry, Kevin.
So for the adult males that are supposedly winners, are they only showing aggressive behavior when it's defending territory, or will they also fight under males if they have perceived better quality habitat? Like, do they try to steal other people's habitat, but only rather than defending the territory?
So the question is, if I understand well, is what is the dynamic of territoriality, basically? So are hummingbirds defending their own territory, or do they go and try to acquire a different one, right? I don't know. No, I have no idea, but it's a great question because hummingbirds keep track of flowers, right? And at some point they are defending a group of flowers, and this is, don't think about feeders, think about, natural resources. Flowers are gonna die, and then what is that hummingbird gonna do? Of course, it's gonna go and try to get a new resource. So my take here is that I don't know, but I could speculate that that it will depend on how much the nectar they are getting in their current territory. So, yes. So the question is about natural selection in bill size and what is the time frame for that. So, right? Yeah. So this is a phenotypic selection analysis. So it's an equation that basically relates the state of a trait, meaning how long, what is the relation between beak length, and some fitness variable. And in this case, it was body condition. And this is in the middle of the winter. So this is within one generation. It's a picture in time. So and of course, you could do a much better study if you now start studying heritability and you see how, other components of natural selection. But a phenotypic selection analysis is a good proxy of natural selection. It tells you that at least one trait is advantageous. Yes, you were first. Yeah, sorry.
Two questions. How big is the population you study? Are they enclosed so that you can pick up the same bird again and do the same growth hormone? That's my first. And the second is, you said something about thyroid hormone. How in the human beings, thyroid hormones don't affect aggressiveness?
So the question was, how big is the population that I study? Are they in captivity? How do I catch them again? And what is the effect of thyroid and in aggression, right? So to start, I always work in the field. I'm a field biologist. I don't like hummingbirds in captivity. I don't have the nerves to keep them in an enclosure. So basically, the only option is to capture a lot of them and catch and catch and catch and catch. However, how Robin, that it's here, has witnessed that we see marked hummingbirds coming back. So it's possible to, and actually we avoid recatching the same individual right now because we are just starting. So they're, just, we ban them, and we also add that color foam in their bags. So we know we are watching them near the trap. And when we see a guy that we want, we release the trap and we get them back. And actually we did that to reattach a color foam that was a little bit, or the picture wasn't that great. Sorry, the second part of your question, thyroid. Thyroid is interesting not because of aggression, it's interesting because metabolism. So thyroid hormone is the master of masters, in my opinion, because it drives metabolic, it shapes metabolic expenditure. So it could be really interesting to know how that interacts with reproductive hormones and also with glucocorticoids, which are stress hormones. So those three axes probably have a battle. Yes, okay, I have you, yeah.
So we have a couple of hummingbird feeders in our backyard. That sense that most of our hummingbirds are local, so they stay year round. But I have a brother in Oregon and a brother in New Mexico, and they talk about sometimes looking out and seeing 12 hummingbirds on their feeder. But ours always chases the others away. But if they have 12, it means somebody's not being particularly aggressive. There's something about hummingbirds that stay in one place and ones that migrate that are other migrators less aggressive.
Yeah, and so the question is, are my hummingbirds local? And what happens when I see several hummingbirds in the feeder is that the territorial is not acting, and what happens when the migrants get here, right? So that is, I think that a question that has been understudied, because most of people band, but they don't add the color foam to, or like a tag to see exactly what hummingbird is that when you are seeing with binoculars at the feeder. My take, and this is based on my several experiments, I think that same that you saw when nectar quality or ambient temperature are important to shape aggression, also the number of competitors. When the number of competitors is huge, at some point, defending makes no sense. So, right? So most likely is related with that. Now, I also have seen that there is a overturn in between Anna's hummingbird and black chins at some point. Anna's hummingbird the reproductive season starts going down, and black chins are still full of testosterone, defending feeders and trying to be aggressive. At some point, there is a turnover. So I think that is related with the cost of defending. But if you have many, many feeders and very spaced, you're going to start seeing that there is a hummingbird that stays there and guards the feeder. But if it's too busy, then
Oh, there's a nest up in the tree. That's so fun. I'm wondering, is this, he has real red under here, and we see him a lot. Does he chase away his offspring?
Good question. So males in all the hummingbird species, males don't participate in raising the youngs. They don't provide any parental care. Males display, they do an amazing display, but are the females alone build a nest, raise the youngs, etc. And it's an interesting observation that you have a nest by the feeder, because in general, what you see is that the nests are a little bit far away. In general, females don't like that much having, all that drama around the feeder next to the nest. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So I had yes.
To identify maybe birds.
Do I use color bands to identify the birds? No. Yes. No. Because hummingbird tarsus is so small. Then I use the bird banding lab metal band with the serial number. And to observe them from far away, I add the color foam that you saw in the video. So it's just a tiny little point of color glued with eyelash glue. So it will go away, depending on the brand of the eyelash glue. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Oh yeah, do you notice a lot of cross-species competition? And then any particular, I'm assuming most species, have limited range, but they probably have a lot of others, that there are ones that are more successful in defending against
Okay.
rivals.
So interspecific competition, what do I know about that? Right?
Yeah.
And are there some species more successful than other ones? Yeah, definitely there are more species, some species that are more aggressive than other ones. And for example, in Costa Rica, when you see the violet saberwing arriving to feeder, they're huge and they displace everybody else, right? But in this case, Annas are really aggressive, but what I was mentioning before is that I have seen that they start losing when at some point with the black chins, when the black chins are fully reproductive and the Annas are ending the reproductive season. There's a point in that they are not that aggressive. But yeah, so it will depend. That question is very general because it will depend on the environment and what species are involved. So I can give you Chilean examples, for example, and yeah, it will apply here. Yeah, I had a question here. Yeah.
Is it true that hummingbirds' nests typically have 2 eggs?
Yes, all the is it true that hummingbirds have 2 eggs? Yes, all the species, with no exceptions, have 2 eggs. People have recorded 3 eggs, maybe once in a while, but that actually what people think is that is a female dropping an egg for reasons that we don't know. But in general, the rule is 2 eggs.
The hummingbird nest in my yard
Mhm.
had 3 eggs.
Wow.
And then one morning I got up and I saw that 1 egg was thrown out of the nest and onto the ground.
So it could be that it was dropping, another female dropped an egg, but I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't know because yeah, But the reason why there are two eggs is because have you seen the babies, the nestlings getting bigger? And at some point it's so tight that they fall, right? So imagine with three. And so the cost of building a nest probably is already exhausting for a female. Building something bigger and feeding a third baby would be pretty much impossible. So it's too much. And one, of course, is not that much for that effort, right? Any other question? Yeah.
How many offspring do they have in a year?
Ah.
How many?
So good question. How many times a female will nest in a year, right? We don't know because there are records of females nesting 3 times in a row. And then there are other species like I work with a very, very endangered species, the Chilean wood-star hummingbird. They nest just 3 months a year, one nest, that's it. So it will depend on the species and most likely the resources. Yeah. So, yes.
Is there a thought that the chemistries between two birds, male, female, the complexity is very, she may be trying to appeal to something that counterbalances her chemistry. And in that sort of proposition, is the female, since she's sort of the creation of this, essentially, of this new bird we had, is she at all competitive versus her counterparts for any particular male that might be the most
Attractive.
viral or attractive, or
Yeah.
however
So-
she finds.
So the question is, are the females competing to each other for a male? The answer is no, because males just will provide sperm. So they mate, they will perform for a female, they mate, and then the female goes away and she will nest by herself. So there is plenty of that male for many females. And actually, there is a very good question, which is, what are the females looking for? We unfortunately didn't get that grant, but hopefully we are gonna get it. But yeah, what are they looking for? So yeah, what makes a hummingbird attractive for females? Yes. That depends on the species. So in Anna's hummingbird, what you see is a giant jay. So they go up about 15 meters and then they drop down and then they perform a jay. At the moment of going on the curve, they spread the tail and that sounds zip. And that is like enough to conquer a female. Yeah. Absolutely. Some jays are better than others. And if you have seen hummingbirds for a long time, you see that some jays are not going to go anywhere. You see. Yeah. You absolutely, you can tell. Yeah. I mean, yeah. After a long time watching them, yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Also combined with like bigger dust and that too, right? But they also look at that simplicity, right?
Yes, exactly. So, okay, what is the role of the gorget? So good question. So the hummingbirds are iridescent, right? And they perform in a way that is not random. They will perform looking at the sun. So they try to maximize how shiny is their feather, like gorget or crown or both, and the change in color. So have you seen hummingbirds under the shade and they look dark, right? And then you see them in the sun and they are like, they try to maximize those things. So, sorry, I forgot what was the question. The question was, so the question was that what is the role of this? So they try to maximize it. And actually, There are species that do kind of like a shuttle behavior, meaning that they go in front of the female in kind of like an particular pattern, and then they show the gorget completely extended. So the gorget needs to be looking at the sun and also extended. Costa's hummingbird would look like a octopus on the sun. Mhm. Okay. Yes.
Some hummingbird species I think aren't so dynamic, right?
Yes.
And are those ones also less aggressive?
So good question. That actually is great because there's not that many species, but I have two interesting comments. One species that look exactly like each other, like I mean males and females, like Panthera insignis. They live up in the volcanoes in Costa Rica, and they are both really aggressive. So that is actually great to try some cognitive stuff and excellent model. And the other case that is interesting is the Jacobins, so Florisuga mellifera, and in that males and females look different. They are dimorphic, but some, like a third of the males are actually female in male plumage. Yeah. Yeah, and then it seems that could be related with the aggression that they receive from males. So it could be that looking as a male could be protective. Yeah, but nothing proved there. I mean, it's that I know that research is going on, but I don't know the results yet.
I heard somewhere both sexes are those
Sorry,
both sexes.
drop meaning like. Oh no, like actually the males are pretty colorful. I mean, reasonably colorful for a hummingbird. Yeah. Okay, well, oh,
My husband, fills the hummingbird feeders with sugar water.
yes.
And I say you should do that, but you don't get the vitamins and other things from buttons. Who's right?
Okay. Okay, let's start on the feeders first. On the feeders, it is very important to wash the feeders every 2 to 3 days, or in the summer especially. In the winter, it could be a little bit more, not that more than 4 days. Always fill them with white sugar and water, or filter water if you can. If not, just boil your water, wait until it's cold and use that. And the thing is that the nectar in flowers is just sucrose. It doesn't have that much more, not that much more. The hummingbirds will complement their diet with insects.
Resin,
Insects.
insect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they catch
That's why
insects.
they are
Sorry?
That's where all the other stuff comes from. Iodine for thyroid or whatever.
Yes. I mean, actually, if they don't get the proteins as and no, they do really bad. Even when they need a tiny bit, they really need that. So my point is that feeders are okay. It's just that feeders don't provide habitat for other species. So in terms of restoring our habitat, it's better to have flowers, but I would like to put a side note here. So I am running another project to understand if flowers that come from nurseries and cultivars, they have been selected because they are beautiful.
Yeah.
Do they provide the same nectar or not? So we are running that experiment right now, comparing straight natives versus cultivars versus flowers that come from other continents, for example, Grevilleas, and trying to understand what kind of nectar composition they have. So that is running on the side. So I think that I mean, there is nothing wrong with feeders, but flowers will benefit other species too. And the other thing that I don't like that much about feeders is that There is an invasive species of praying mantis that is hunting from the feeders, and that is not that great. They can hunt hummingbirds, and I didn't believe it until I saw it. It was like horrific. And the other thing is that it's a it's a resource that is very concentrated, so they fight a lot, and that has consequences on the biomorphology.
And they come to him and over.
Yeah, they recognize you. They know, yes, yes. Yeah, they see you and they know who you are.
Yeah.
Their memory is amazing. So it's not, yeah, yeah. So you have friends. Yeah. Mhm.
Do they like roses?
No, they don't like roses. No, no, no roses. No, you have to provide things that have nectar. Yeah. California fuchsia, ideally natives. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, everyone.